Hello and welcome back to the Football Heritage podcast. I'm your host, Rory Bryce, and today I'm joined once again by Luka Lagvilava, aka Georgian Footy. How's it going, mate? Thanks very much for coming back on.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to talk with you guys about all things football and especially Georgian football. So yeah.
Exactly, one of our favourite countries to visit. Obviously, the last time we spoke, we covered
I'm Emery, yeah, Emery.
America tbilisi, yeah, and that was a really, really good episode, and people seem to really enjoy that one. So, of course, today, as you've probably guessed already, we're going to be talking about another football club from Georgia. Not necessarily a lost club or one that's went defunct, but one that has decided to change their name halfway through a season. And even though the European rules have kind of said they could get away with it for European competition, there's still a pretty big change in there as well. And their new name kind of harks back to some previous, things to do with identity and heritage and that side of things. So this club started off the season as FC Saburtalo, and are now known as FC Iberia 1999.
Yep.
And it was a bit tough to try and find any information on them. But they're still quite an interesting club, and they're certainly performing quite well at the moment. So, Luka, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background to this club?
Yeah. Well, to start with, team that was formerly called Saburtalo, they were basically like an academy set up back in 1999 when they actually got founded. Basically picking up like a few players here and there and training them in a district called Saburtalo, which if you actually sort of bring that name down, it calls a place where you play ball, because burti in Georgia means a ball. So there's sort of kind of similarities, kind of connection to football, I guess, on that matter. And they started off basically as an academy because they played most cases like the fourth or fifth division of Georgian football at the time. And then when there was like a solid crop of players coming in, back in like sort of 2014-15 season, they basically got promoted back to back, and then they got to the Georgian top tier. Won it in 2008, 18. Won the cup in 2019. So yeah, they were fairly successful considering like the history they have, which is quite limited. They're not like not the typical sort of Dinamo Tbilisi or Dinamo Batumi or Topeta Kutaisi. They're not the sort of team that has had history, and especially in like post Soviet Georgian and during the Soviet time. So you'd think that in terms of like the club identity and like what they possess, it's not like a history run club, but they had a project which worked. They had the second best academy, and probably still have it now, the second best academy in Georgia, which obviously helps to bring in a lot of talented players through the ranks. And in world football, they can't really be a successful team with any sort of homegrown academy players. At least that's the way I see it. And that formula worked for them. And then probably the main reason why they changed to Iberia is they're not even playing in the district called Saburtalo, which I'd say it's like third or fourth largest district in Tbilisi, in the capital of Georgia, and cases like we all know like the sort of intercity rivalry, and like probably Crvena Zvezda and Partizan Belgrade are probably the two teams that were probably the most renowned in terms of that sort of local rivalries in eastern side of Europe, and they didn't really manage to set up like a fan base for people to follow. Let me put it this way: no proper marketing as well. It's probably their own fault, I guess, but it's probably one of the reasons why they struggle to gather any sort of crowd. And then they basically decide to permanently move away from that district, and now they play on the David Petrashvili Arena, which is a bit far away from the district of Saburtalo, and decided to change names, which is alright, I guess. Alright because of, well, I guess it always at least sounds a bit more sort of European Iberia, because we all know that, Western Iberia is also in Spain, as they call it. So definitely there's some sort of connection to that, and it kind of sounds a bit more sort of modern on that case. And also a case of, how to put this, the owner who runs the club, he's got like a business group called Iberia Business Group that runs like cars and stuff. Audi, Toyota, and all sorts of things. They've got like a few showrooms in here, and they've probably sort of merged with that brand, I guess. And that's where the name came from. And yeah, I guess it's an alright thing. They're as you mentioned, that they're performing very well this season. Probably surprisingly, because they haven't really got, on paper at least, before the season started, they never really had that great of a team. But again, team chemistry, most of the players playing together for years, most of homegrown talent as well, as I mentioned before, and it turned out to be like a working formula for them, and well, fair play to them.
Yeah, definitely, and there's quite a few things there to talk about, and you alluded to it at the start as well. This is a reasonably young team. I mean, they were founded in 1999. They're younger than me, so they've not been around for long at all. But in that time, as you said, and we've discussed this before, and we talked about it in the last episode we done on Ameri, is that in post-Soviet Georgia, you have a lot of teams winning quite a lot of things, but they might not necessarily have quite a long history. So, of course, Saburtalo, called that. They've won the top tier, they've won the second tier, they've won the Georgian Cup a few times now, and that's how they're going to be in the conference qualifiers in the summer. So. Yeah. It's really interesting, and it's really good how they've managed to do this from kind of having that academy set up, as you said, but also going back to the name change. You mentioned there, you've got Western Iberia, which is in Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, and I think that's what a lot of people would probably associate that name with. But obviously, you've then got Iberia, which was a former kingdom within what is now Georgia. So, and then, of course, you've got the attachment to the brand as well from this new owner of his car dealerships. So there's quite a few things to unpack there. Did they change badge? Did they change their colours? Or was it just a name change? Everything else stayed the same?
Just a name change, because you've mentioned the UEFA rules. You can't really go too far from the sort of the current identity the team has. And they basically stuck with everything, like colours, the badge, like everything is the same, just the name is different. And I think that allows them to participate in this year's Conference League, because you can't really play. I think you can't take part in your competition for 2 years if there's like a dramatic change in like club's identity. So probably thought about it, and I guess it's all right. I'm not a huge fan of the 1999 in there, but yeah, I guess it's all about. In the meantime, you spoke about Soviet times. Whenever we've moved from Soviet Union. Most of the teams adopted the new sort of names, because Dinamo Tbilisi used to be called Iberia Tbilisi at the time in the 1990s, and then the first, I think, like 1 or 2 years they were called Iberia, and then they moved back to Dinamo Tbilisi again, the sort of identity, because people weren't really associating themselves with Iberia at the time as much, and I guess it's probably one of the reasons they've got this 1999 in the name, just obviously with the year the club has been founded, but still, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention the 1999 part of the name, obviously. As you said there, you have these UEFA rules, which mean you can't deviate too much from the club's original identity. So maybe the inclusion of the 1999 is a way to basically offset or get around that, to just include it in the name. Maybe. I'm not too sure. Obviously, if he's trying to tie it more to his brand, I'm going to assume that the owner is using funds from his business to invest within the club.
You think, I mean, that's the correct way of thinking it, because he's been at the club for basically since the start, since 1999, but he's always had this, assumptions of, next summer we'll bring in proper players, we'll have a great team, but then he failed to do it because of some sort of reasoning behind, I don't know what, because he's, I understand it to a certain extent, because one of my mates used to play in the Iberia, one of my cousin used to play for them for like 4 years before last season started, and there's always, I think with teams with basically no supporters, because you can't really sign proper players, foreign players as well, to teams where they've got like 200, 300 people in the crowd, which it doesn't really help as much. Although they had a few decent runs in the UEFA qualifiers, just getting over the line was always an issue, mainly because of the quality players, mainly because of the quality of foreign players at the team, which weren't as high as you'd wish for. And if they'll, I'll tell you how to put this. Again, you could invest money and you could do a lot with a sizable budget, but you need to have some sort of fan movement around your team just to improve, just to have that. I don't know how to, not attention, I'd say, but basically hype around the club. And I think if the Euros, which is about like 45 days away from now, it will probably draw a bit of attention to the league as well, to the Georgian league as well, and maybe it will help out the team. In the case of like some few more foreign players will be willing to sign for Iberia, they will be able to have a decent crop of local players as well as some foreign players who will help them in the qualifiers. And then again, as I mentioned before, like they're a team that actually playing really well this season. They topped the league. It's a 2 point gap. It's pretty tight at the top, but still being top of the league is not an easy feat. And if they manage to get over the line in European qualifiers, go through a couple of rounds, let's say, it will probably generate some momentum for them to again draw some crowd, good marketing policy that will help as well. And maybe in a few years' time, we'll have a team that will have a decent, sizable fan support, because it's not looking all that great today, but maybe in 2, 3, 4 years that they'll have a team that will be a force, not only on the pitch, but off the field as well, so to speak.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a sliding doors moment sometimes if you've got a club who's maybe performing a bit above what they're used to or what they're actually able to do.
Yeah.
They get into, the Champions League qualifiers or the playoffs, whatever you want to call them, and they go through the qualifying rounds, and it can be a bit of a money spinner, which is always good. But it's then how you reinvest that money, and if you don't do that properly, we've seen it in clubs of Scotland all the time. Aberdeen probably the best example. They go through all these European playoff games and qualifying rounds and whatever, not invested the money wisely at all, and they've just not been able to capitalise on it. But on the other hand, Hearts have done really well in creating this sustainable model built around consistent European qualification and using the money wisely. So if they're able to do that, then I think there could be something there to build on. But as you said as well, marketing plays a huge part of it. Branding plays a huge part of it. And maybe that's the reason for this name change as well, is to try and draw some more people to the club, just out with the district of Saburtalo. You mentioned as well, though, that pool for players. I mean, players aren't going to want to play for a team that don't have a lot of fans. Even if they're looking at the club as a stepping stone or something, they're just not going to want to do that. You mentioned, of course, they moved away from Saburtalo. Did they move far?
It's a different district, but it's about like 25 minutes drive from the place they were. To be fair, the thing is, they never played in Saburtalo before they came to the top tier, because they only got an artificial pitch in Saburtalo in the training base, and not allowed to play on an artificial grass in the Georgian top tier.
Okay.
But then they played it on another district called Vake, this Mihail Meska Stadium, which is the second largest stadium in Georgia, and in Tbilisi. But now, obviously, I've had this talk with people a few days ago when I was at that game. They were like, "Oh, what's the point of them moving here?" I was like, if you think about it, having 500 people in stands with 30,000 in capacity, it just doesn't look right as well. You'd rather go to a smaller stadium, which it will also look fuller, and the experience is a bit different, isn't it? Sort of packed. It looks more packed in than Dalek Petroshelia Arena is about 2,000 people, 2,500 people maybe sat there. So again, it just looks at least better. And as we mentioned before, players won't be willing to sign for a team with no supporters. If they had a look at their streams and stuff like that, they'd be saying, "Oh, there's a decent turn up, maybe a couple of hundred people are going there." So that helps. I think that helps. And as well, I'm in favor of the ideas of stadiums kind of being remote in a certain way. By remote, I mean Dinamo Arena in Tbilisi is just in the middle of the city, and it's incredibly difficult to get there. On a match day, yeah, I personally park a couple of kilometers away because it's incredibly difficult to get near that. And whenever the game ends, 65,000 people rush out.
Yeah,
and you can never come back home. So obviously that has to be sought after. And in this case, the stadium sort of works in favor of them, just because it's a remote, cozy place. You'd rather have there aside of the main centre of Tbilisi, when there's more traffic and all sorts of things, and I think that should benefit them in a way. And for fans as well, I'd rather go to a quiet place to watch football rather than something you have to go to for hours and hours and hours in driving, I'd say. So yeah.
I suppose in that light, then it looks like maybe the chairman has a kind of idea in his mind of some sort of market employ that revolves around being a bit passive at first, where for the neutral fan anyway, or maybe for people that are just starting to get into football in Georgia, they're looking at this club that are doing quite well but don't have a lot of fans. Stadiums a bit further out, and they've got this kind of club atmosphere and idea around them of a club that's on the rise. It can actually be quite appealing to neutral fans, and it's something that maybe a lot of people will look at and think, I want to follow these guys. Maybe they're seen as the underdog because they're not one of the big teams. It's expected that they'll not win again. So, it's quite interesting how he's went about it. And again, with the name change, it seems like he's just trying to increase his catchment and try and draw a few more fans to the team.
You'd say so, definitely, because as I mentioned before, you need some sort of atmosphere around the team, not just with the way they're performing, but I think we've spoken about this previously. The difficulty in Tbilisi to gather crowd, not just with Iberia. Like I watched Dinamo Tbilisi for the last, I don't know how long, for 20 years, something like that. And their tendency to just go down every single season. If it's not like a crucial match day or like a derby, 500, 600, 700 people at max typically attend the games. It's because in the capital, we've got 1.3 million living in the capital, which is huge for a country that only has 3.8 million in their population.
Yeah, massive.
I think people just find other things more interesting and attractive for them to do. Just because, obviously, in today's world, how everything sort of moves fast and it's a bit more dynamic than it was probably 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. People are interested in more things. They've got less time to do some things and try to multitask at times. And I get that. But again, in a city of 1.3 million people, you should be able to gather at least 2,000 people to attend your games if you do it properly. Like some some pre-match shows or some giveaways and stuff like that. Always going to draw attention. And I've been going to Iberia games for a while because it's actually nearby my area as well. And I see a lot of foreigners attending games, and I'd say at least out of 1,000 people, there could be 200 to 300 people who aren't Georgians. Just interesting there because, as I mentioned before, good, and the weather in Georgia is typically quite nice. Good weather, Saturday afternoon. Why wouldn't you go to a football match for a couple of hours? Some might like to grab a beer, sunny outside, watching a bit of football. Again, it sort of coincides together, and as a team, if you manage to brand it kind of well, and if you manage to put together kind of well, the only outcome could be nice. So I guess again, it's all in the hands of the owner and the team around him, and if he decides to do it properly, which obviously going to take time. It's not like a one day thing. Obviously, it takes months and years. They should be able to at least have a team that will have a sizable home crowd and that will have a team for people to support. And again, if they back it with their results domestically and on the international stage, it will only work well for the club financially. Just again for their history and trying to sort of have a good legacy in the league, because they've won they've got 3 cup titles. They've won the league once, which is, for a team that's relatively new, it's not a bad thing, I guess. And it all happened in a short space of time. In 5 years, they managed to win the cup 3 times, win the league once, playing Europa League playoffs and stuff. So yeah, it helps. But again, it requires a lot of commitment, a lot of patience, which is obviously key in many aspects of the world, and especially in sports. And I guess it's pretty doable, at least the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about longevity, and it's like having a 5 or a 10 year plan. You need to be committed to this long term goal that you have for the club, and obviously things in football can move quickly, and sometimes people don't want to do that. I mean, Scotland, you had Open Goal Broomhill, who basically partnered with a podcast to change their name, and it lasted half a season. Edinburgh City, who changed their name to FC Edinburgh to sound more European, lasted about 3 months, and they almost ended up having to fold this year. So if you're going to stick to something in football, you need to stick to it. You need to plan it properly, and you need to think it through properly. And to be fair, it sounds like that's what the owner is doing. It sounds like that's the plan that he has. And I think one thing that's important that you mentioned there is to get fans to a stadium. It can't just be about the football in a lot of ways, as much as we would love it to be. You almost need to package it as an experience or a day out. Have a kind of free ticket scheme or reduced tickets for kids, have food, have pre-match entertainment, etc., etc. It's all about how you package it and put it out there to people. One thing I did want to ask as well, is the owner still the Minister of Sports in the Georgian government? Has he stepped away from that role now?
I'm not sure if he still is. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. He used to be for years, but I'm not sure if he still is. But obviously, the way it works here, like if you've been in the government for a while, uh, there's some connections in there. Definitely, even after you've probably resigned from your post and stepping down, there's still something going on. I guess that's is a case with any other government in the world, but
Mm.
yeah, I'm not sure if that plays a big part because they've been on sort of, I don't know, this sort of scale of going up and down at times. So
Yeah.
not sure if that really matters on their success and stuff. But yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, fair. No, I was just curious. That was all. If it's
Yeah,
something that's not really affected them, then that's fair enough. It's just
yeah.
always interesting to see when politicians decide to get involved in football teams in whatever form, to see if they have had any influence over them. But it's good to see that he's got this plan in place and that he's managed to bring them some success as well. Importantly, because it's so easy for business owners to get involved in football clubs and they go down the drain really quickly. So it's good to see that they've had this steady rise over the last couple of decades or so. And they're really making waves. I mean, how are they doing in the league this season? Are they pushing for the title again? I think you said there was a 2 point gap or something like that.
Yeah, they're at the top of the league. Well, our league is like a summer league. We started the season in March, so after 11 games played, they're top of the league with like 26 points, 2 points above the second highest ranked team. But they're actually playing well all around. Like the atmosphere around the team is pretty nice because they've got a decent crop of players, homegrown players as well, which I've mentioned previously, and it helps. Obviously, it helps because if you're again thinking of doing like a long-term project, and if in the first year your team is performing very well, it's just another confidence boost for you to keep on to push forward. And now they've signed a couple of agreements with foreign teams, with Talares, which is in the Argentinian top tier. They're exchanging players here and there. Like they've signed like three Argentinian players on loan from that team. And they've also signed with one of the worst performing teams in the Slovakian league. I forgot the name. Is it Zlatan Mihalovce? I'm not sure if I'm correct. Again, the sort of exchanging players and loaning local players out to their teams, and again, the sort of partnerships obviously work, and it takes years for them to pan out because again, as we mentioned before, patience is key in this case, and well, hopefully it will work out. It will work out fine for them and the players they're signing and letting go. So I think they're on the right track as of now. It's pretty early on. Just not even a third of the season has gone by, so we can't really say for sure whether if it's a proper thing or not. But hopefully, in a couple of seasons, we'll see them taking that next step and pushing forward to maybe going deep in the qualifiers, maybe winning the league again. And they are set up to win the league this year as well because the gap between the first three teams and the rest is quite big. I don't say anything can happen in football. You can never say no, but
Yeah.
that's the sort of case it is.
Yeah. It will be good to see how they perform over the next few seasons and if they manage to make some decent inroads in Europe. It would be amazing if they managed to reach the Conference League proper and in the group stages. That would be absolutely
It
amazing.
will be difficult because they're probably going to be an unseeded side again, which is difficult for them to qualify.
Yeah.
So maybe they can get by in the first round, but after that, the big boys coming in like Dinamo Zagreb and PAOK and stuff like that. So far superior teams. Yeah, that obviously makes it difficult for us sort of minor league teams to qualify. But again, it's football. You never know.
Exactly. It's quite interesting though how they've got these partnerships with Talleres in Argentina, and obviously you say the worst performing side in the Slovakian league. It doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. I mean, obviously with the Argentine connection, it means they're looking for players to give them a taste of European football. But it also sounds like with both of those partnerships, they're looking to pick up diamonds in the rough. Who are the best performing players at these teams, and can we get them over here and can we make something of them? And they can get them up for pretty cheap. So it's a very, very interesting policy they've went for there.
Yeah, but because mainly you also have to look at the thing that like our league isn't like even in Europe we're like probably the top, on the low end of the top 10. I'd say we're one of the worst leagues, at least in terms of sort of if you look at the rankings, we aren't really ranked quite high. I think we're like 46 in the ranking. Not sure out of like 55 nations. So if you look away and trying to give your players some experience in European leagues, which are superior than yours, it can only work out well. And we all know how in today's day and age, obviously, the market is so huge, like South America, Africa as well. Those are nations who basically spawn gems probably at every other team, and you can get them for cheap as well. It always helps to build the team, and it needs time and it's a bit of patience for it to work out properly, because it's also difficult for foreign players to settle in a new league, for especially if it's like such a big difference culturally. And I think it will only benefit the club. Again, building connections, networking as well. You have to think about it. And if there's one or two good players coming in from these sort of partnerships, it's something to build upon. And I guess if they manage to secure another couple of other teams in exchange the sort of players, because they had a bunch of Iberia players went abroad as well to the so-called to the Slovakian league, so it helps them individually to grow as players, to develop youngsters as well. So I guess it's a win-win for all parties in a way, and if they manage to do that on a consistent basis for 2-3 seasons, it will only benefit all the sides involved, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it must be it will be a good time to be putting these types of things in place for any football club in Georgia, because the mood around Georgia football-wise must be amazing at the moment with the Euros upcoming. So everyone must be buzzing, man.
Oh, definitely. Honestly, it's kind of funny, but the day after we qualified, those 2 weeks were like super rainy, cold, proper winter weather, although it was in March. The day after it was sunny. Honestly, it was like 20 degrees outside because like, and some people were like, it was meant to be happen. It should have been sunny in all around Georgia, because again, it's such a huge lift for the country, because as mentioned before, it's first time qualifying for us, and the buzz around football, and I have to put this, it was about time for us to qualify, because we needed that as a country, and with all the political tensions going on in Tbilisi right now to this day for the last couple of weeks, I'd say. It obviously kind of hurts. It's painful to watch, because for many years we've been like that, in like all sorts of tensions, people divided on other sides. But that football really connected all of us, I'd say. And honestly, partying for I don't know. I came back home at like 8:15, something like that, after the game in the morning. And obviously it was definitely huge for everyone, even those who aren't really fans of football, who don't really watch it all that much. You could see that people, elderly women, kids, everyone around the city and around Georgia as well were super happy. And again, that's what football does, isn't it? It unites people. It is the most beautiful game if you think about it. So again, that night really turned out to be special.
Yeah, fantastic moment. Are you going to be going?
Yeah, definitely. All 3 games, booked up for all 3 games. Well, first against Turkey, then we've got Czech Republic and Portugal. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it's going to be brilliant, and it was a fantastic moment for the nation as well. Great game, and as you said, I think it's about time that you've qualified, I think, because your squad has been building up to this sort of big climax, if you like. And I think with the individual talent and the way the team is working at the moment, I think he's deserved to qualify, and I think it was about time. And it just shows that this model of player development and young players coming through for Georgia is working. Obviously, as you mentioned, and the last time we spoke, you hope that eventually some players from the Georgian league will be called up, some homegrown players there. But if clubs around Europe are noticing how good the talent is in Georgia, it can only be a good thing for the national team.
Yeah, for sure, because again, how the statistics, 17 or 19 players out of the team that managed to qualify were from the Dynamo Tbilisi Academy, which goes to show that there is talent in the country. And for teams, again, we talk about markets and how the game has expanded to not just being centralized in Europe, but around the sort of Eastern Europe as well. We mentioned South America and Africa previously, Asia as well. It will inevitably draw attention to foreign clubs, saying like, oh, I mean, they've got like one player for Napoli, the other one plays in Valencia, he plays for Torino, he plays there. There should be something going on properly, isn't it? And for teams about like even now, like there are plenty of players who are being monitored by some decent foreign clubs, and again, the Euro might be vital for us just to take that next step, just to give another platform for players to leave for better leagues and better countries and for them to develop. And again, that going to simultaneously work back to the league as well, because more money going to be invested, more people going to be interested in invest. Like we've seen how, I'd say nicely, Ecuador has been doing in terms of their player development with a fair few players. Now, Kendrick Hyde is probably one of the most talented players in the world in terms of that, like under 18s, under 17s, especially because how many clubs have invested in Ecuador and put up academies and stuff. Because again, it's such a, also football is business, and teams are trying to make money off of players, and which is, again, you can't really deny that. No one's gonna ever deny that. And all the opportunities teams have outside their countries in smaller nations to invest money to bring in players who are probably like 16, 17, 18, for them to sell them on for 10 times the amount they've invested in them. It will obviously pay off, and maybe in a few years' time we'll have the same sort of vibe, because we've got a couple of sort of academy branches from Inter, Villarreal, Betis. They're helping the under 13s, under 12s, under 11s to develop a bit more, to give them trials to, again, back in Spain and Italy and stuff. So it won't help. It will just only help the country to develop and the players to develop, and it will benefit all the sides, I guess, in this case. And huge Euros coming up for us, for many players playing in that team, and hopefully in coming next qualifiers, which we've got the Nations League coming up in September, but before the next major qualifiers for the World Cup, we will have a team that is at least half a level above which we have right now. And it is doable, I guess, but again, it takes a lot of time. And over the last 34 years, this has been the first time we've managed it as an independent nation. But again, it's still worth more than anything that happened in the last 34 years. And hopefully this is just the beginning for us. And many other nations who are in a similar sort of boat as us. We've seen North Macedonia qualify 4 years ago. Another smaller nation that managed to go through to their maiden major tournament. So yeah, I guess it all works out well for us smaller nations, and hopefully in the next few tournaments we're going to see more faces. Similar to Georgia, North Macedonia, Albania a few years back, Iceland as well. So yeah, I guess it can only be classed as a positive.
Yeah, that's it. You always hope to see the newer, smaller nations come through, if you like, into the tournament. But I suppose the hope would be for Georgia to become a staple at the tournament and be an ever-present, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, because we've in the qualifiers, I mean, we really struggled because let's face it, we aren't on the same level as Spain, Scotland, and Norway, and that's probably one of the reasons why we finished fourth in that group. But again, it takes time. Every single team needs time to develop, and as I said before, we're like a relatively smaller nation compared to others in terms of population and sort of player pool, and it can only mean that this sort of tournament successes can just guide the team to future success. And maybe for new players to pop up, and we'll see that they will probably make the next step, improve, develop, and help Georgia to secure more success in future tournaments coming up.
Exactly. And is the league in Georgia going to be continuing while the Euros is ongoing? Is it going to take a pause, or matches going to be scheduled on the same day?
I think it should be paused for a bit. I'm not sure, to be fair, because we'll have our pause mid-July when the qualifiers begin, when the European qualifiers begin. But just because of the fact that there are not too many players in the team who are playing in domestic leagues, maybe one or two in a 26-man squad, again, doesn't really make much of a difference at times. I'm not sure if there's much need for them to postpone the league and to reschedule a few matches. But again, I think it might be paused for a couple of weeks at max, because again, the UEFA qualifiers also begin at that similar time come July.
Yeah, okay. And just as a final point on FC Iberia, I suppose the continuation of their academy is also going to kind of partner with this kind of partnership and transfer policy that they seem to have, because presumably they're still going to continue or try and upkeep their reputation as a good academy side and having a good youth academy, and they'll probably be able to make inroads there in terms of selling some players and shipping them off to other clubs in Europe as well.
Yeah, for sure, because I guess the main reason why they are successful for the last few years is just because of their academy, the players they brought from the academy, and they were probably at one time they were the youngest team playing in the top tier. They were like, the average age was like 19,
Wow.
19.4, something like that. Because well, that's the team that brought them to the top tier. And why should we change the formula? Which again sounds reasonable, and obviously need some supporting cast to help those young players, to give them experience and to help them on and off the field. And right now it's working out quite nicely, and they've had a few players going out for a sizable fee, and I guess this sort of, if they manage to win the league this season, or again we'll see a few players moving on for better leagues, let's say, and it will again just help the team financially, it will help the league to sort of market itself a bit better, and the team to market itself a bit better. So I guess it can only be classed as a positive.
Definitely. Oh, that's brilliant. Look, at anything else you'd like to add just before we finish up?
Nothing. That's probably it on my end, at least. And yeah, again, it's always a pleasure to be here and talk about Georgian football, because it's definitely a topic kind of close to my heart, let me put it this way. And thank you for the invite again.
Not at all, mate. You're welcome back on this podcast anytime, so thank you very much for joining us once again. If anyone wants to learn more about football in Georgia, including all of their exploits at this year's Euros, and you can go and check out Luka's work over at Georgian Footy, I think that's right, or if you just type in Georgian Footy into X, it'll come up. Of course, if there's another topic that you want us to cover related to a lost club, a club that's changed names, changed their identity, their badge, kits, colours, whatever, anything that's related to football history, heritage, culture, identity, community, place, you name it, then we'll have a chat with you and we'll do our best to get you on the podcast to talk about that. You can reach us at _footyheritage on X, or you can email us at hello@footballheritage.co.uk. Feel free to get in touch with us wherever. We're always open for a chat, particularly where football history and heritage is concerned. But for now, Luka, say goodbye.
Bye-bye.